Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Fox 32 NFL Combine Special, Scouting the Future. I'm Luke Canellis. The medical testing, teams meeting the players, the workouts all continue in Indianapolis. I'm joined in studio by my partner, Anthony Herron. Cassie Carlson is live from Lucas Oil Field. She is networking and listening for NFL Scoop right now. All right, we're going to get to the Caleb Williams interview at ESPN, guys, in just a second. But, Anthony, I wanted to ask you to start the show. Anything strike you as surprising that's come out of the Combine yet?
I wouldn't say surprising yet. No, I mean, you start off with the big guys early in the weeks. You see a lot of the defensive linemen that are there on the scene already. The rules have adjusted. I was referencing this a little bit yesterday, just where each team has to make decisions. There's 60 interviews, 15 minutes apiece. So it is pared down a little bit. So it does mean a little bit more at this point for which teams are interviewing which particular prospects, especially when it's taking place right off the bat, versus what it was a few years ago when I was going through this process, because teams want to make sure that they're sort of paring down their schedule and using it wisely, because they only get so many of these interviews and the time they get to spend with each prospect.
All right, Cassie Carlson, as I said, she is in Indianapolis right now. She's been floating around Lucas Oil Field trying to get the scoop. And Cassie, I know you were out last night. Bears GM Ryan Poles, did you see him out there meeting, drinking with another GM, trying to put together the makings of a Justin Fields trade?
Hour every year at the Combine, and I thought it was really cool. Both George McCaskey and Kevin Warren showed up to show their support for the event and network a little bit, so it was really cool to get to talk to them a little bit. Obviously, they're excited for what the future is going to hold with the Bears in this offseason. Neither of them said they are taking any vacations right now because they are obviously busy and going through this entire process, but a lot of other coaches were out trying to get a feel. I was actually talking to someone who was saying, the easiest way to figure out what the Bears might do is, or what teams are thinking they might do, is ask them when they ask you, hey, what do you think the Bears are going to do with number one? Say, what do you think they're going to do? And a lot of times they'll start divulging some more information. But we do know that Caleb Williams has arrived in Indianapolis. They just showed a video of him walking down the hallways of the convention center, and we do know that he will meet with the Bears, and he does still remain the number one story here.
Is for sure. All right, stand by, Cassie. We'll get it back to you momentarily. Caleb Williams will meet in person with the Bears sometime tonight in Indianapolis. Now, Williams did an interview with ESPN that was released this morning. It was the first time he spoke publicly since declaring for the NFL draft, and he shot down all the rumors and speculation about not wanting to play for the Bears. Instead, he shared his excitement of following in the footsteps of Walter Payton and Michael Jordan. Williams said, quote, "If I get drafted by the Bears, I'll be excited. If they trade the pick and I get drafted by someone else, I'm just as excited." Speaking about Chicago, they have a talented team, a talented offense and defense. For anyone to be in that situation, I think they'd be excited. He added, quote, "I'm not pushing any agenda. At the end of the day, the Bears have the last say, regardless of how I feel. I'm not pushing an agenda of, yeah, I want to go, or no, I don't want to go. I'm excited for whatever comes." And he squashed the ridiculous rumor that stated he would blow off the media this Friday. Instead, he confirmed, yes, he will meet with the media Friday. Quote, "I want everyone to hear me and get a feel for who I am, so they're not throwing things out there that are false or that isn't coming from me. Being able to see who I am as a person and my heart and love for football and winning games, that's what I think they'll get from it. My intensity about being on a team, going out there, and kicking ass with my new brothers. That's what I'm excited about. That's who I am." All right, let me bring back Anthony Herron before I bring Cassie back into the conversation. I don't remember more negative talk surrounding a draft prospect, and I asked myself, is it because I'm really following Caleb Williams because of the Bears and their situation? Is it because he's called a generational quarterback and being compared to Patrick Mahomes? Or does Williams bring this negative talk on himself?
I think because the modern athlete, the modern college athlete especially, is covered differently than it used to be many years ago, really just a few years ago if you think about it. And part of that is because now fans, I think, are accustomed to looking at them in a different light because we know they can profit a bit more because of name, image, and likeness. We see Caleb Williams on billboards and national ad campaigns, and that's a little different than either a couple of years ago when Trevor Lawrence was kind of going through this as a guy who spent several years as the presumptive #1 pick in that coming draft cycle. And also, he played at USC. He's in that LA market, that brand that comes with that. And he's been one of these guys who, while his personality in the public sector has always been one that folks have been able to gravitate towards, but there do tend to be these rumors that kind of circulate around him. So I wouldn't necessarily blame Caleb for it, though, because a lot of times it's folks talking about him. Folks who said, it was the national media talking about whether or not he should continue his final season at USC after they lost to Notre Dame. Caleb Williams never said that himself. There were other people talking about whether or not he'd be willing to play for the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams himself, we never heard that from him. So that's part of the unfortunate thing about the way he's been covered, because I do think there are legitimate questions about his game, and we'll see some of those, answered as he goes through this pre-draft process. But in the end, I mean, he as a personality, everything we've heard from him directly has always been above board.
All right, let me bring back Cassie Carlson, who is live in Indianapolis at the Scouting Combine. And Cassie, you're there amongst the other media, national media, local media. What are they saying about Williams' quotes in the ESPN article this morning?
Well, just personally, when I read that, I thought, wow, this was a smart move by him and his team. He doesn't have an agent who is going to be representing him, but he did say in the article that he's surrounded by a bunch of people who are helping influence him and helping take care of this entire process. And I thought it was a good way to smooth everything over so he wasn't walking into that interview with the Bears with this negative connotation, or Friday morning when he's going to talk at around 8:30 in the morning and media members are going to be setting up hours in advance to make sure they can get a spot, just peppering him with these questions with the thought that he isn't going to be a positive or he doesn't want to go to Chicago. So I thought it was a good way to get ahead of that a little bit. But I think a lot of the things that we talk about with Caleb Williams, and Big Ant, you just hit on it, is because of the NIL era, and we know that he's making millions of dollars in college. You see videos of him driving, a red Ferrari down the streets of Los Angeles. So a lot of people can't conceptualize what that's like for a 20-year-old, 21-year-old to be doing that in college. And so he's already this multi-million-dollar brand, doesn't necessarily need the NFL. And then you pair the fact that he is the top-rated quarterback and prospect in this draft. And I don't know if jealousy is the right word, but people don't like to like people that much because they have everything going for him. And I think we're grasping on certain events, right? The going into the stands and crying to his parents, the painting of the nails. I'm trying to think of some of the other things that he's done. Just some small, snarky comments after the postgame or not doing a postgame interview. And we're really attaching to those instead of maybe looking at the bigger picture, hearing things like his teammates speaking about him and saying he is a great teammate. We know that he's bought things for his teammates with his NIL money. Also took his offensive line to the Heisman ceremony and gave them credit for helping him get that Heisman award 2 years ago. So I think we probably grasp at the more negative things and run away with that than probably look at the entire big picture. So that's just, I think, what we all have a natural tendency to do in this situation. But I thought the article, it was smart. It was smart by him, because otherwise the tone here with him walking up to that podium on Friday would be very different, I think.
I agree with all your points, Cassie, and I'll add to this, at least locally here in Chicago, because there is so much love for Justin Fields, because of the way he is respected by his teammates, and we have heard them talk in the media about Justin Fields, the leader, the quarterback. It is taking a lot for Chicagoans who are Fields fans to wrap their arms around Caleb Williams.
I think that is completely accurate. And, it's a part of the reason where my viewpoint on whether or not they could potentially have both quarterbacks in the meeting room together has adjusted a bit. I thought earlier in the season maybe it was more plausible, but because of the way that the locker room and the city has wrapped their arms around Justin Fields, it would be putting both Justin and Caleb Williams in a difficult spot to try and keep them both. And I just talked to Caleb's college coach, Lincoln Riley, a couple of weeks ago specifically about this outstanding quarterback prospect. And he's one who likes to try and remind people as well that, kind of to Cassie's point, Caleb Williams is still a young individual. He's still developing. He's still maturing, not only just in his personality, but in his game. He's played 3 years of college football. You think of a guy like Jaden Daniels, who's been in the sport for 5 years, and a lot of the other prospects who've come out in recent years where you still do get those 4 and 5 years in college. To be a 3-and-done player, he's nowhere near a finished product, either on the field or off. And I do think that's really important for people to end up realizing, recognizing, because he will continue to evolve as he steps into the National Football League. And you would certainly hope he's going to be in an environment, and he referenced this in some of those quotes to ESPN, that he recognizes the situation in Chicago and the roster that Ryan Poles is putting together will be one that should put any quarterback in a quality position.
All right, if you missed our show yesterday, Bears GM Ryan Poles addressed the speculation surrounding Williams, and if he had any concerns about bringing Williams to the Bears.
No concerns about that at all. I would love to know why, if that was the case. Like I said, I think as a young quarterback, and I've been around it, the infrastructure is important, and I think we've made really good progress in terms of having really good infrastructure for whoever were to come in, or if Justin were to stay here as well.
All right, and again, the Bears are going to meet with Williams later tonight. Cassie Carlson, she is in Indy. There she is. You also talked to the voice of the Bears, my partner on Bears Game Day and Bears Game Night Live, Jeff Joniak, about what he thinks the Bears are going to do, right?
Yes, I did. And we actually had a conversation building off of what Big Ant was just talking about, the locker room being supportive of Justin Fields. And he said the reason why Justin Fields has resonated with so many fans is because they feel like they're kind of like his friend. They can relate to him in a lot of ways. And maybe that is a concern with Caleb Williams, who just seems so untouchable in a lot of different ways, too. But he said Chicago likes people who they feel like they can wrap their arms around and they can know, and they treat him like almost like he's a friend. So that was an interesting note by him. And he's obviously been covering the Bears for, we just asked him, 24 years. He's 24 seasons. He's been the voice of the Bears. He's been with the team for 27 years, I believe. And he said that, you know, he's gone through a lot of quarterbacks. He's seen a lot with different GMs. And one thing that he was pretty impressed with was the way Ryan Poles spoke and addressed the media yesterday. So here's what we had a conversation about earlier today.
I believe this. Ryan Poles is a quiet storm. And the other day when he was speaking, I was very impressed, because that man is intense, but he was relaxed. He was smiling. I mean, he's in the catbird seat. And this is one big game of chess right now with the rest of the 31 other teams. And when he said there's literally hundreds of scenarios, well, I'm sure there's not hundreds, but there's a lot. And a lot could happen. So what are you going to do if somebody offers you the moon? What if they just offer you the stars? I mean, I don't know. I think you have to do your due diligence no matter what people say. And yes, Caleb Williams is the #1 rated player in the draft, more than likely, including guys like Marvin Harrison or any other player on the offensive side of the ball. He is a possible generational talent. I say possible because we've seen things go in a different direction because of circumstances and whatnot. But I think they have to do their due diligence, interview all the quarterbacks, go to their pro days, figure out exactly, and that's just not quarterbacks, it's every position, and find out what's what.
And Joniak said that what he would want to know from Caleb Williams is just how much he actually loves football. We've heard that from Matt Eberflus. We've heard it from Ryan Poles. That is like ingrained in their philosophy of how they bring people in and how they decide to go through about free agency. The love of the game is one of the biggest things possible. So that is going to be a lot of the focus, he believes, as they sit down in that 15-minute interview.
All right, thanks, Cassie. We'll get it back to you momentarily. In a 15-minute interview, can you truly believe that he loves the game as much as you want him to love the game?
It depends on what his putting stroke looks like. We know the Bears are a bit
he's
unique.
He's going to be putting and throwing darts.
Bears are a bit unique in that regard, where they like to sort of disarm their prospects in that way. But the 15-minute interview that he'll get with the Bears, that'll be sort of the first in-person meeting that they'll have along the way here. They've done a bunch of research, man. They've had private investigators out digging through his trash and all these kinds of odd things. So they at least do have some sense about Caleb Williams from the environment around him, from people who've interacted with him over the years. Like I mentioned, I've talked to Lincoln Riley recently about him. The Bears have done that and more. I do think in the end, though, the several meetings, this will just be the first of several times they'll spend some good one-on-one time with Caleb.
All right, we are going to step away for a quick break. And as we do, quick programming note, we'll be live on Fox Local all week, 1 o'clock, breaking down the very latest from the NFL Combine and the future of the Bears. And if you miss us live at 1, hey, you can watch the full replay 2 times.
Yes, sir.
6 o'clock on Fox Local. Bears going through the interview process with the prospects. Yeah, they're playing darts and putt-putt as well, and that includes they're going to spend about 15 minutes with quarterback Caleb Williams later tonight. Let's bring in Cassie Carlson live in Indianapolis. Cassie's been listening to a number of the draft prospects in Indy today. And Cassie, what do you like and what are you hearing when they're talking about the Bears?
Well, that a lot of people know, especially when it comes to the defensive ends, pass rushers, that they want to generate their pressure with the front four. And that's obviously something we heard from the new defensive coordinator, Eric Washington, last week, that is going to be an area of focus. And we also know the impact that Montez Sweat had on this defense when they traded for him and then paid him. And we saw the defense take off from that point. So we know that the Bears could use another edge rusher on this defense. And that's maybe somewhere they look to add in free agency or go the younger route and learn or bring someone in the draft. So a lot of these prospects are being asked what it would be like to play alongside Montez Sweat and learn from him, including Jared Verse. He is a defensive end out of Florida State. He started his career at FCS Albany and then transferred to FSU after 2 years. He totaled 89 tackles, 29 and a half tackles for loss, and 18 sacks over that period of time. Came across as very mature and very open when he was talking and definitely believes he still has room to grow. Here's what he had to say.
I mean, you land with a veteran guy, at the end of the day, I think he knows I'm a young guy. I'm still going to need help. I'm going to need, to get the understanding, get the bearings right. He'll be able to, direct me in the right path, fix a couple things that I might, need help with that I didn't see in college that, they won't work in the NFL. These guys are all pros. These guys are vets and stuff. So I hope he, gives me the guidance I need. My focus has always been me. It's never been, what, people have going on in their organizations or what they have going on in their, locker room. Mine's always been me. The team that needs to get me will get me. I hope I go to a great team. Whatever team I do go to will be a great team, and I'll give them everything I have. So I just hope to give my best.
And he also said that nothing has come easy for him, so he is definitely worthy of, he definitely feels like he is still working towards being his best, and that's something he's going to be focusing on as he makes his transition to the NFL. I believe it was Daniel Jeremiah's first mock draft that he had him going to the Bears at number 9 overall. Another edge rusher is Dallas Turner out of Alabama. He got the last of Nick Saban before he retired. He said he's familiar with Eddie Jackson, and here's what he had to say about the Bears.
The Chicago Bears, they have a very their defense is really, from what I was seeing, their defense is based around their pass rushes and stuff like that. And so, being a pass rusher on that team, you get a lot of freedom and stuff like that, and you get a lot of opportunities to make a lot of plays.
And then the final prospect that we talked to today out of the edge rushers was Laiatu Latu out of UCLA, and I think he has one of the best stories out of the entire draft right now. He was told he needed to medically retire in 2020 after a preseason neck injury, and then 2 years later he came back and transferred to UCLA and is now one of the top prospects at that position. And just hearing him talk, the perspective that he has on life is really enlightening and refreshing. And I'm trying to find the exact quote that he said. He uses a quote, "Live like last." He writes it on all of his papers, all of his notes, because he knows what it's like to have someone tell you, hey, you're never going to play football again. And then he decided that he was determined to come back, find a way back. But in the meantime, he gained all this perspective, actually did firefighting on the side, and said that is another goal of his. If he's never going to play another football game or whatever, if it's in another career, he wants to be a fire chief. And of course, he had a little fun too when walking into that Bears interview, because as we learned yesterday, they're going back to their old trusty darts or putting, and this is what he had to say about that.
I did the darts because golf. I took up golf. I did golf for the first time in Arizona, and I sucked. But he had me do the darts, and I was almost close to getting a bullseye, but that was pretty surprising to me that they had me do that. I'm competitive, and within the darts, I feel like when they were telling me, okay, get a bullseye, I would come close every time. So really, just when they told me to do something, that I'd really do it. Yeah.
And one thing that we notice about Latu is that he's actually kind of small, or appeared small when he was standing up there at the podium. But I was having a conversation with Jeff Joniak, and he saw him at the Senior Bowl. And Big Ant, I'm curious to hear your perspective on this, because he described him as slippery.
He is, and that's kind of what his game is like, Cassie, because he's a really fluid sort of pass rusher. By comparison to any of the three guys that you referenced there, Latu is the one who's got the most, I'd say the deepest toolbox of pass rush moves where he can beat you with speed. He's got really violent hands where he can work both up the edge and counter back inside. Between the three of them, probably the one who's the most explosive athlete is Dallas Turner. I think his game is maybe the least refined out of any of them, but from a traits perspective, Dallas Turner is the type of guy that I could see the Bears and a variety of teams really falling in love with because he's a little bit more raw, certainly playmaking ability, but he's an outstanding combination of both speed and power. But I'd say out of them, I think Jeff is right. Latu is a guy who's really slippery in his style.
Real quickly, if Latu's still there at 9, Bears second pick in the first round, do you take him?
As we sit here today, I feel like top 10 is a little bit rich for Latu. I think he's got a chance to have a nice, long NFL career, but there's a couple of other edge rushers I think would be a better fit in the top 10 than Latu.
3 years, his career, second half stats, 77 passer rating, 58% career completion percentage. You know what that is? The guy I keep comparing him to, Zach Wilson. But New York media never defends Zach Wilson. They call it as they see it, as they should. I respect that. Chicago media, this guy deserves another year. He is, in the second half, Zach Wilson. Highlight tape, moves pretty well, good arm, not efficient, not accurate, off script, very limited. The New York media calls it the truth. The Chicago media has been protecting him and buying into this. We really like him. Stop it. Come on. You're not hoisting a trophy. Caleb Williams is way. Drake May. If there was no Caleb Williams, Drake May's too talented to pass on, in my opinion.
Colin Cowherd on the herd claiming the Chicago media has been giving Justin Fields a free pass. Comparing Fields to the Jets' Zach Wilson. Personally, I think Cowherd's wrong on both fronts. I don't think the Chicago media has been soft on its criticism of Fields. I believe that we have been fair. We have criticized when warranted. And frankly, I believe there's more national media out there selling the Bears should keep Fields than local media. What do you think?
I agree. I think when you look at the scope, I mean, obviously, Merrill Hodge has been a loud voice who's not only been, sort of against the idea of dubbing Caleb Williams as his generational talent, but is very supportive of Justin Fields. I've talked to a number of people interviewing on the radio and privately who are very high on the prospects of Justin Fields. Most people tend to think if he leaves Chicago and goes elsewhere, he will have success because we've watched him grow year over year. It's one thing to discuss it with some nuance and recognize the things that aren't necessarily all Justin Fields' fault and where he's improved in his game, while at the same time also recognizing the Bears have a unique opportunity for the second year in a row with the #1 overall pick. I know Colin, he's been really great to me over the years, but he's out over his skis on this one.
I'm with you, partner. All right, let's bring back Cassie Carlson live in Indianapolis. Cassie also caught up with the NFL Network's Andrew Siciliano, former Chicagoan, good friend of the show, and he talked about the Bears' plans for that #1 pick, didn't he?
Yes, he did, and you just kind of alluded to it. I wanted to tell a quick story. Jeff Joniak, our first guest, actually hired Andrew Siciliano in Chicago for a radio gig, and he spent 4 years in Chicago covering the Bulls. I thought that was pretty interesting. So he knows that it can be a brutal market, and I am in agreement with you guys on the whole Colin Cowherd thing. I don't think that we coddle Justin Fields at all in this market. If anything, I think we all kind of assumed he would be gone after this year and treated him that way. So here is how Siciliano thought Caleb Williams could handle the Chicago media.
But I have no doubt that he can handle it. I think people sometimes get caught up, oh, wow, he walked off the field once and hugged his mom. I mean, big deal. I think people get caught up in little viral moments, and they need to step back and see the big picture. He played at Oklahoma. He played at SC. He's played on big stages since he was a little kid. This is not some guy that all of a sudden got to college and hey, we found out he's a good football player. He's been on the stage for a long, long time. He will handle Chicago just fine.
A lot of people are wondering why last season he didn't have as good of a season as the year before. From what you saw, why was that?
He was running for his life. That offensive line was not good. Actually wasn't that good the year before. Look, for a lot of reasons as well, defensively. I mean, SC just, totally revamped the defense and Lincoln Riley, thank you. I just messed up your whole thing there.
No.
Lincoln Riley fired his DC, brought in a whole new staff. Look, he has a lot of weapons around him. He had Marshawn Lloyd, a very good back. He had very good wide receivers, but that line was a mess. The defense was a mess. He was constantly running for his life and trying to put 40 and 50 points up every week because they needed 40 and 50 points to win. I would not put too much stock in his performance last year as compared to the year before.
I do have to ask you, if you were the Bears, what would you do?
So that's a great question. I think we're looking at it through the wrong lens. I think a lot of people are looking at it where it's a binary choice, Caleb or Justin Fields. There could be door number 3. You could trade both. You could trade Justin, get whatever it is, a 2, a 4, whatever you're going to get, and you could also trade down. You could also swap with Washington. Cliff Kingsbury would love to move up. Imagine the haul that you would get if you were to trade both, looking to add pieces to build the thing up. Now, to do that, you'd have to be comfortable with either Drake May or Jaden Daniels or another one of the quarterbacks in the draft. That would be the gutsiest of the moves. Assuming they are not going to do that, I would simply take Caleb.
You mentioned trading back and trading Justin, and then the gap between possibly Drake May, Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy's stock keeps going up apparently. What is that gap between Williams and the rest of the pack?
So I think it's a notable gap, but that doesn't mean that Drake May or Jaden Daniels aren't going to be winning quarterbacks. I think they will. I think they both will be winning quarterbacks, but the gap is considerable. That's just the people that I talk to, or our NFL Network guys like Daniel Jeremiah, who spend their entire year doing this. When DJ says he thinks the gap is noticeable, I'll take his word for it.
Thanks to Andrew Siciliano of the NFL Network. We talked for about 10 minutes. We'll make sure to have that full conversation on our website, fox32chicago.com, Lou.
All right, great work, Cassie. By the way, Justin Fields' manager today posted a video, and in the background you can hear the lyrics, "You ready to go home?"
Oh, wow.
Many feel a deal may be in the works with the Atlanta Falcons, so we will see. Thanks so much for watching our special NFL Combine coverage, Scouting the Future. Keep it here all week, 1 o'clock, live for the very latest on the Bears and all the Combine happenings, and we will repeat the show every day at 6 o'clock as well. For Cassie Carlson, my partner, Anthony Herron, I'm Lou Canellis. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on Fox 32 Chicago, as always, for the news at 4, 5, and 9. Have a good day.